Hey people, how have you all been? Good, I hope? Today is going to be a super chill one, partly because this actual painting was anything but. In fact, it was kind of a nightmare for some reason that I still haven't quite been able to put my finger on, but, we'll get to that. But also partly I thought a chill video might be good because I seem to have caught a cold off my sister, and so I've been putting this off for a number of days now, and honestly probably still should not be recording this, but I'm kind of excited to do it, so here we are. Today's Speedpaint is a sort of poster-style piece of art for the musical Hadestown, which is possibly my favourite musical of all time. I first got this idea way back in February when I was watching ABD Illustrate's Valentine's Day video, in which he drew love songs from various musicals, and mentioned that he nearly did do one for Hadestown, but changed his mind to pick something else. Which, fair enough, there are so many incredible musicals out there to choose from, and I actually discovered & Juliet in the process of watching that video, which is also pretty damn good. But it got me thinking that if he's not going to do it, I might as well take a shot at it, because when I say this musical is amazing, I mean it. For those of you who don't know, Hadestown is an entirely sung musical that retells the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, in which Eurydice dies, and Orpheus travels to the underworld to go rescue her, only to scupper it up at the last minute. This musical tells the story as if it was set in a kind of ambiguously time-perioded revolution, and whilst it still clearly defines Hades and his wife Persephone as gods rather than mortals, with their marital problems kicking the whole weather system out of whack, it also makes many comparisons between the underworld and a large factory and business type setting. The story also gives Eurydice much more agency than the original telling. Instead of having her kick the bucket accidentally by snakebite or something similar, the poverty and harsh weather conditions of the time instead lead her into choosing to sign her life over to Hades, rather than it being something completely out of her control. And honestly, the whole thing is just one of the most heart-wrenchingly beautiful love stories. From the way Eurydice, tough and skeptical of any kindness shown to her, reluctantly falls for Orpheus, to the way both Orpheus and Hades become so focused on trying to make a perfect life for their wives. Orpheus by writing his song to fix the seasons and bring back spring, and Hades by constantly expanding his business and works to try and make the underworld resemble even slightly Earth, enough for Persephone to want to stay, that both end up ignoring the very real neglect that Persephone and Eurydice are feeling. To the way the "Come Home With Me" reprise, Orpheus accepts that all the promises he made of a perfect life free from hardship weren't really attainable, but if Eurydice will just come back with him, they'll face all the hardships together. I also really adore in this song just how excited Eurydice is when she realises that he came for her, and how happy she is that he showed up, because that's kind of what matters most. It's so beautiful. I also really love the way that, after the inevitably tragic ending to the story, Hades and Persephone have finally grown enough to remember why they loved each other to begin with, and promise that they'll try again. Not saying that it's all going to be okay and that they'll love each other forever, but they promise that they'll work on their relationship, which is just so kind of pure and realistic compared to some, Disney-ified love stories. Not that there is anything wrong with a good Disney-ified love solves everything love story. I love a bit of that, but I just love how real and tangible this is. The moral of the story isn't that hope and love will fix all of your problems, but that hope and love are worth having even if they can't fix the hard times, because it gives you something to believe in. Not to mention how fantastic the fates are and the whole, harmonies they've got. When the Chips Are Down is an absolute favourite of mine, despite the fact that I cannot sing it on my own because, 3-part harmonies. And so I just really want to do this musical justice here. And to be fair, I'm very proud of the way I did the background. Ideally, I would have drawn full character illustrations of Hades and Persephone, but I just couldn't fit them in without it being too cluttered. But I really like the little caricatures I've done and embedded in the background. I also tried to have the character placements match up, with Eurydice and Hades close to the bottom of the page in the underworld, and Persephone and Orpheus nearer the top. I also just really love the colour palette of the poster, I obviously stole it from the colour palette of the actual poster, but it just looks so funky. In fact, a friend of mine made a stitch-on embroidered patch of the hand and the flower from the original poster for me for Christmas, and I genuinely love it so much, and to be honest, it's kind of what inspired this whole thing. Actually drawing the characters was not easy though. For some reason I was just having a rough couple days when it came to getting anatomy working properly, and I had to redraw both Orpheus and Eurydice about 3 or 4 times, not all of which are even included in this video. There's a reason it said 5-ish hours at the beginning, because there's so much stuff that I just cut completely, because I was like, you know, no one wants to watch me draw this hand for the 6th time. We'll just cut a couple of these out. Orpheus's hands in particular were just a nightmare. You would think I would have learnt my lesson from the time I drew Jaskier and his lute a couple months ago, but no. And what's worse, since then I've actually started teaching myself a bit of guitar. I even tried to learn the Epic 3 from Hadestown, although it's B flats and C's the whole way through, and the B flat is just kind of a nightmare. Either that or I'm doing it wrong. The point being, though, that I now know how stupid the little claw hand I drew looks, and whilst I tried to take some reference photos of my own hand to help and try and make it more accurate, I couldn't get the angle right and kind of gave up after a little bit. Eurydice's face went a bit weird too. I think the angle of her skull doesn't match the angle of her face, but we're just not even gonna talk about that because, you know, I just wanted to get onto colouring by this point. The colouring was fun though. I think the lighting effects were really working in theory. I'm just wondering if the base colours were a little bit too dark for me to get it to look quite right. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this piece. It's far from perfect and all that, but I had a lot of fun making it, which is kind of sort of the point, really. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm disappearing off on holiday at the end of this week, so it might be the last one you get for a while. But in the meantime, I really hope you enjoy your summer. Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what your favourite musical is, or what your favourite bit about Hadestown is, if you've listened to it. And I will see you all soon. Bye.